Okay. Um, cool. Let's begin. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to and Academy's another Kaleidoscope session with Nishtha Sharma. And the topic for today is decoding visuals in our cultural and political narratives. But before we dive right into this masterclass, I would like to talk a little bit about Anne, for those of you who do not know about Anne, and about this series, which is called Kaleidoscope. So AND is a one-of-a-kind design school that has professional courses that are delivered online. We offer professional courses in the domains of graphic design, interior design, and UI UX design. And actually comes from the design pedigree of IIED, which is a brick and mortar design institute based out of New Delhi. Um, Talking about Kaleidoscope, Kaleidoscope was conceptualized as the series of masterclasses where we invite experts from within the industry, and we talk about various and like different perspectives in design, and it is supposed to be engaging and fun and give you that extra little food for thought. Um, Today, we're joined by Nishtha, who's a communication design graduate and a communication designer from NID. Nishtha weaves style and substance together in her work. She has a passion for typography and animation. She crafts intricate graphics, illustrative type, and sound design, and has collaborated with renowned names like Tina Brown, Lopez Design, Demo Motion Festival, and November. With that, I will hand it over to Nishtha. Nishtha, please take it ahead.
All right. Thanks a lot for the introduction, and thanks for everybody who has joined us today. I hope this particular session will be worth your time. So I'll just begin with this session. So I think before we move ahead on the topic, like I would just like to extend on the introduction. I did this course, communication design in NID, and I think I'm thankful for the curriculum that was designed for this particular course because it did let you like it they were teaching us, every different kind of medium that we see in visual communication, be it branding, print design, illustration, type design, motion, sound, UI, UX, everything. And because of that, I think I was able to build a portfolio where I was able to work on projects starting from branding and website design to like lettering and typography, UI, UX. I also worked on multiple animation and films for events and exhibition. And I kind of like started developing this whole direction for illustrative typography and more like experimental stuff. And but I think what I wanted to specifically talk was how did the idea of design feel kind of changed for me? Because when I was joining the college, like, I used to see these ads or these films, and you will think like you'll get to know the technical side of how do you create that. But I think more than that, especially in the foundation, what we were taught was firstly very different than what I thought design would be. And it was taught in a very different way. Like we were taught like what is a system by playing a game, right? We were taught before even doing the design part, we were just asked so many questions or like what are you saying? Like reasoning behind every single word, even though like we had exercises where you draw 5 frames, but so much discussion used to happen for each of those frames that it kind of like develops this understanding for you where you yourself are questioning every frame, every angle, every element that is there, even though it's like a very simple exercise. And even in something which was super graphic or super like form related, we were taught like system behind that, like even from A to Z, if you're drawing a letter, like what is your like underlying system behind that. And it went on for weeks and all, and you kind of like start questioning what is happening, why is it so different from what I thought. But it did really like help me build an overall understanding to start a project, to conduct a project. And as my personal journey, like in the design field, because of which I was able to kind of like, extend my skill set with every project. Like I started with doing social media and stuff like that, but I delved more into research, UI design, just understanding like how does a team, like a bigger website design project works. And like, I think I just wanted to conclude my learnings from college before we go into the topic. And these were like three statements that kind of like stayed with me after the college, even though I've heard it like I've just learned it the hard way. Like I used to do mistakes, and then you learn something and it will stay in your mind. So definitely, like in our field, like we're creating visuals, be it every medium, any medium. But one thing that was definitely there in my mind was everything is placed in its context, like everything is in a certain setting, everything will follow a system, right? Everything basically will have like a pre thing and a post thing, and hence like everything will be related to something. And everything will either have a meaning or will derive its will develop a derived meaning, right? Either you take something that already has a meaning, like people understand like what does this mean, or when you use something totally new, like people start like associating meanings to it. So everything will either have a develop a derived meaning. Now, coming to what exactly are we going to talk about today? Because again, like this topic is quite broad. So we're gonna see like different visual cues that are there like around us in different like fields. Like we're gonna touch on typography, architecture, symbol, branding, all of this. How stereotypes are formed, like specifically like visual related stereotypes. What is the social identity? What do we see like in languages and scripts, symbols, and what do we mean by derived meaning out of a graphic, right? And why do we need to know this? Like I'm sure like maybe people who are really new to the field might ask this, but I just feel like I stumbled upon some articles and I got super interested in this topic, and I started like looking for articles, looking for books to know more about this, just like out of interest. But I think like I realized it has built this understanding in me, and it has just like sensitized your brain to like look at your work from that angle, or just like being aware of whatever output you're going to release. So the attempt from this session is to just like tell you different examples, different stories from past, from present, and just to like make you just like help you build this understanding while doing the project. It might also lead to like when we're just taught this design process, like we start by identifying a problem, researching, blah blah blah, all of these things. And if we can just add like one more step of like taking a pause, looking things from a more cultural angle. So I think that is the objective of this particular session. And yeah, like to start with, I would just like to show you the symbol. And I'm sure like all of you know what does this mean. We use it like it's now like we see it in posters, movies, everywhere, right? And we do associate this with love or belonging, like just like the emotion of love. But when we really like go back, there are so many theories of how did this symbol particularly came into existence, right? And there are different theories, but one of the theory that really like uh I found interesting, and it's really like contrasting to see that this particular heart shape actually like came from a seed shape. Like, so this was like a silphium plant, was a plant that people used to use in ancient times as a birth control, right? And because of this, like this particular plant was so expensive that people used to like trade a lot with on this plant, which is now extinct. But like it used to be on the coins. People used to like, recognize this plant by this particular shape. And again, like as I said, there are different stories and different theories on how did the heart shape kind of come. But it's really interesting just to see that something that was related to a birth control medicine, or something that was used as a birth control medicine, evolves as a symbol of love, right? And we can even see in like as a gesture, like again, it is a very common gesture, right? When we do thumbs up, or we show a thumbs up to somebody, like we are basically signaling approval, or everything's good, it's okay, something like that, right? But the moment you do it in different parts of the world, like the moment you do it in Iran or Iraq or any like Middle Eastern part like Afghanistan, it's considered really offensive to do this, right? A lot of travelers have kind of like said that how they were kind of like seen the moment they showed this gesture. So again, just like an interesting uh example to see that the simplest gesture that we use in our daily life means something really different in a different part of the world. And we're gonna now like delve more into examples related to graphics or visuals in general and see how the meaning kind of changed. And one of the stories that I wanted to pick was this for this particular script. I'm sure you must have seen this script somewhere or at some point of time. Even now, like it is, you can see it in a lot of graphic design work. You can see it on tattoos, you can see it on album art, you can see it on streetwear, in fashion and everywhere. But what I wanted to do is like just get into how did this particular style or particular script came into existence, and how do we see it now, right? And it definitely has a really interesting story. So this particular script is called black letter. A lot of people now like practice this particular as a calligraphic style. But in terms of the story, what happens is like, again, like in the eras of kings and like olden eras, like people used to write with a quill, like a feathered quill dipped in ink, right? So it was really hard for them to draw a curve like for a P or a B in a singular line. So they used to break it, right? And hence, like it was almost like a practical thing to do, like let's break and make curves. But then it became like, because people used to write like very religious documents, people used to write like manuscripts that time. So it became like a standard script, right? And even when printing was introduced, it was used to print Bible and everything. So the script was associated with like a religious context or something that is more like, an authoritative context in German. And even like writers or kings who used to, like send their text in a written form, they just wanted to separate it from, say, texts that are coming from Italy, because just by the looks of it, right? Like they just wanted to separate it, and hence they preferred this particular style or script of writing. But then, like now, like when we go years down, like around 1933, like we saw that the Nazi party revamped this style, right? They made it their own, like from a religious context. Now it was like a branded item for a proper, like a political propaganda, right? Why did they use it? Because they considered this as something that is coming from like a German history, and then they kind of like associated it to something that's more superior than anything. And like we definitely, like in those times, the moment people will see this particular script, they will relate it to that. But again, shockingly, surprisingly, like it was later banned because they felt it had Jewish origins. But what is really interesting is like now years down, like around 70s and 80s era, like a lot of punk bands or a lot of graffiti artists started using this. So this became a symbol of counterculture. It became a symbol of, like, for people who are just like, showing their attitude of rejection towards what is considered mainstream. Right. So what is interesting is that black letter wasn't just decorative, and it really shows us that the look of the letter can really define and enforce meaning. So this particular story is something that has been really like interesting for me to know, and like it kind of like pops in my head whenever I see anything type related. Now we've spoken about like letters and just like type. I also wanted to kind of touch upon architecture, because again it is a different mode of visuals that we see around us. And just to like ask you, like if you see like this is one temple that is in Tamil Nadu, and this is one temple in MP, right? And without knowing any like history behind these two, like visually one can see the difference just in terms of structure, the styling and everything. And like one might think that it happened like out of somebody's personal choice, or just happened because of the environment, material, or functionality. But one of the reasons was also because uh, northern, like this is a northern style temple, and it was done before. So again, like rulers at that time, like specifically in the South Indian region, they just wanted to create a distinct style for themselves, because they wanted to have like a separate independence in terms of like cultural identity, right? And definitely they use like different ways to do that. But just like the look and the structure of temple was one of those things, which again tells us that it's not like like graphic design or some a field like this only exists for brand and stuff like that. It's really quite engraved into our cultural settings. So again, as I said, like while the material location or a functional need of a building might dictate like how the architecture will look. But what we can see is like visuals were distinctly like crafted different intentionally, just to have like a cultural identity of their own and not to be grouped under what's been already there. One of the examples is, I think this is the most common ones, where we see the swastika symbol. And if I show you these two, like one can really like see the similarities, and it almost looked like a rebranded exercise, right? Like this is old, this is new, and which is what actually happened, right? We know that swastika again holds like great amount of importance in like Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism, and it's been coming since like really ancient times. But when we see the logo for the Nazi party, like it's not just a coincidence that this happened, right? It was really adopted, like the symbol was adopted. And here we see like how did like the meaning of the symbol kind of changed. And even when you use it in certain part of the world, like it says something, and if you use it somewhere else, it says something. But the whole idea was that we might feel, oh, maybe they look like same and it's a coincidence, but it's not, because the party like really they wanted to like build on this whole idea of why swastika like represented something, and it had this whole thing like when we talk about Aryan supremacy, this is this whole theory that those people are superior in like human civilization. So like they really built onto that particular theory, and then they took it. They definitely like rotated it, like removed the dots and whatnot. But again, the idea is that somebody is taking a symbol from certain like like certain setting, and somebody is adding on to another meaning to that and using it for a different thing, and then it means something else. And now how we know it is like it becomes like a symbol that was used for hate or oppression, right? So again, this what we kind of like get from this particular example is that how like visuals that are similar can be reinterpreted, almost like rebranded, or like a new meaning can be added to them. Lastly, I think I just wanted to talk about the script and how like what role like does it play? Like why in India like we don't have one script? Why not everybody is like using Hindi or English? And what does it like mean to them? Even though one of the misconception is like when you ask people what is the national language of India, most people like either say Hindi, but I think like because India becomes like a secular nation, it cannot have any national language, right? And this is the story of this tribe. They're called Santhali tribe, and you'll find them like in eastern India side. Like you'll find them in West Bengal, Jharkhand, Orissa, places like these. And like if you see like what used to happen is like there were like more a bigger community always used to dominate, and them being like a minority, they were always like neglected. Like they didn't get any chance to put their voice forward. And this is an attempt by one guy who created a script with the objective that we'll be able to now write our things, we'll be able to like send it across, we'll be able to unite ourselves, like we'll have something that will unite ourselves. Like of course like there were like so many different practices that they used to do that made them like a community together, but script kind of like created them, like it's almost like it created a visual like similar identity for them. And that's why even till now they've been like fighting for it to get implemented at the places where you'll find this community, right? And so around like 2003 the government like made Old Chiki an official language, and around 2008 like a unicode come. What does it do? It lets you to write a script in a digital form. Now what you can see is like a person from that tribe, if they come to a railway station, right, if they don't see their script, like it's really like alienating for them to use that space, right? Why we're like this whole question that comes like why not say one language, one script everywhere? Because it's really hard for somebody to like suddenly like use facilities like education or say something in healthcare or something say in transport. right? And this is just like a one example of, you can really feel like how would a Santali person might have felt the moment, like before and after, right? Like signage, signage like do play a really like functional role in our public spaces. The fact that now your script can become a part of that signage is a really like big support to them, and it lets them use like public facilities. So yeah, like this was just like one learning from this whole example, where like people often form groups and establish like identities to basically unite and protect themselves. And what we can see in this example is how a script, like a visual set of letters, serve as one of the key elements in building a social identity. And because of this only, like they were able to like make a mark for themselves. Like people, they got a voice. Like government could recognize this as a community, and hence their language got official. And I mean, I'm sure like this is exceeding the time or something, but just give me 5 more minutes. I've just now like listed few projects from more recent times, just to like, like kind of end it on a note where we see projects from that are happening more recently around us. So this is one project that was done by a type foundry called Typotech. They work with like various typeface designers from different parts of the world. And what they're really known for is this particular type family. So what you see here is that various Indian scripts are being like constructed following a similar system. And if we think about it, like there have been like more scripts before this, right? Like we see like different scripts like Bengali scripts, right? Odia scripts, all of these. But the fact that somebody took this effort of, and then this whole idea of creating a system, a type system that can be applied to so many scripts in the most authentic way, is something that is really like, commendable, like in my eyes. And then again, like I think if you think about it, right, like a community like was earlier only able to write content by hand, and the moment somebody makes like a font for them, it really allows them to spread their content like on a wider note. So again, I feel like these are those topics that really lie uh say outside of the general projects that we see in the field of graphic design, where like we see branding, we see campaign and all of that. But this is one project that you see, like one might feel like, do we need it? But if you really see the impact of it, like it's quite stark. And this is one of the projects where we feel what graphic design or the field of design does in the society and what impact can it have. Another one that I wanted to talk about, again, this is not a very renowned branding example, but I think when I saw it, it really like strike a thought in my head, and I really wanted to share that. So Modernista is basically a production company based in Brazil, and this is their old branding, right? So now you see like, I'm sure like you see some familiarity when you see this particular logo, right? And what it is like it's Bauhaus inspired, right? Again, Bauhaus as a theory like originated in Germany. And as we can see, like more and more brand like agencies or like branded projects just started like using Bauhaus as a visual style, and then they started applying to any project that used to, like that was there in that time. But the company kind of felt, and this line, like I really like think about this line whenever I'm doing a branding project specifically, like it wouldn't make sense for a Brazilian company to smell like a German one. And if you really see, like, yeah, like you cannot tell, like you definitely firstly cannot tell that it's a production company, and you cannot tell like where are the origins of this company, though it will fit under like what we've been taught in college, like Swiss or Western design practices, right? Like it's clean, it's really like functional, it has this edge, it relates to this whole design industry or design knowledge that we've been taught, right? But it did not work for the company, right? Because they felt like they did not get that Brazilian uh, touch or tone that they wanted to. So this is one mood board that they did for the project, like to rebrand it. And if you see, like, they started like collecting visual cues that were there in the area, right? Like, be it the color palette, be it the symbols, or be it just like how things are layout, right? Like layouted in something. They have their own collage techniques, they have a print technique, and all of these things. So I think in rebranded exercise, they started studying these. They also started taking like references from, say, Brazilian festivals and stuff like that. That has happened. And then the rebranded identity was something like this. And it has actually like really worked well for them. Like, it does not look like it can be for anything, or it does not look like it can be any other company, but it does have something that company felt like we need a Brazilian taste to the company, right? And it really gave that. I think to end with, I would just like to say this particular quote, and I'm sure like most of you know Paul Rand. He was a great American designer, and he says this line: "Design is the silent ambassador of culture," and we can really see it like in so many ways. These were just few examples that I've collected and I've come across. I'm still like super interested in this topic, and I keep like looking for more examples like this, looking for more resources to know about this topic. And every time I read an article, like, trust me, it really like helps me in my design practice. Not Probably not in a direct way where you do like a very like cultural infused project, but just like just like a general sensibility, or general like you sensitize yourself with this knowledge, and then whatever you will do again will not be like say will not say be faulty in a context that you're working in. So yeah, like currently I'm at a place where I do love to talk more about this topic. I do love to research more about this topic. I do like to make more artwork on this topic, just to like put my stand forward. And I've been creating more work just related to this topic. And in the end, I just wanted to show this project that I did with Squadron. Squadron 14 is an agency in Delhi. So we did this for Raw Mango. It was for India Art Fair exhibition this year. And again, like, it came out of my personal interest, where the idea was, let's draw an animation that shows different connections between different letter forms, different symbols, different things that came. And we can really see like a letter does look resembled from like a flower that was there in that region. We do see a letter form that looks like it might have come from the forms of a bird, or stuff like that. And there are so many interesting stories around this, and this as a topic like has now become like my personal passion project topic that I keep dealing with. So this is one of those recent projects. And yeah, I mean, I think in the end I'll say thank you for listening to me. If you are somebody who's like also interested in this topic, would like to know more, would like to research more together, would like to connect just to discuss something around this, I'll be more than happy to discuss this. Reach out if you want to like discuss more. So yeah, that'll be my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Nishtha. That was a really nice presentation. I really enjoy looking at your work. I really enjoy it. So now the floor is open for any and every question that you guys might have. You can use the Q&A box to put in your questions. So yeah. Oh,
While they put in their questions and all that, maybe I thought that, Nishtha, I'll sort of, there is somebody who's raising a hand, but they won't be able to speak, na?
oh, I think Deepak has raised their hand.
Yeah,
Deepak, if you have a question, you can put it in the Q&A box and then we'll answer it systematically. Yeah, Prachi, you were saying.
yeah. So there is a question about the course, I think, which we can take. But right now the forum is more to, learn from and with Nishtha. And I thought we'll do the talk about the course later, and we'll probably go from there. So I'm going to do a slightly side step on this, Nishtha, and maybe try and put a question to you, which might be more relevant for our listeners, so to say, in that sense. When I look at the history of communication design as this discipline is called today, or recognized today, it goes back to fine arts, and then from fine arts to applied arts to graphic design, and then communication design. And there was not very long back, even in my times, visual communication, or if it moved from graphic design, it became visual communication. And visual communication and animation were separate, and user experience, user interface word also did not exist. And they were product designers, which is what my background is. In today's time, when you have practiced as well, and all of these disciplines have merged. So there is an illustrator also, which might have undercurrents of being more fine arts or visual arts oriented. And then animation, which is part fine arts, visual art, part, graphic design, or I don't know where it's going. Yeah, all of that. It's all merging. These, yeah. And that is why probably the name of communication design has been given to the discipline. Yeah. So I have two parts to this question. One part is that, what unique challenge does this pose to you as a practitioner? Yeah. And how does this become a resource for you? Like both, what is the benefit and the challenge of this interdisciplinarity? But it's not interdisciplinary, it's just very wide ranging.
Wide range.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think I'll say from my experience, as in when we were taught different things from college, suppose we were taught 10 different mediums, right? By the end of it, I kind of picked on say 4. And I felt like these 4 together are making super sense to me. And I started developing myself in that. In fact, even now, I still have this, I keep questioning myself, should I be specialized in one thing, or should I keep increasing this whole range of skill set that one can have? But coming to prose, I think what it does is when they teach you different mediums, like how we spoke about, right? Say, let's take something really different, like lettering, like typography or UI design, right? Something really different. But what I think is important is how do we ideate for both? And this understanding for anybody to start on ideating for both, I think the moment you will be able to build on a stronger understanding just to ideate on these, you will be able to perform better into multi-medium field, right? Second is I started realizing connection between these two. When I knew motion graphics, I felt like if I knew more about sound design or just the idea of syncing sound, I'll be able to do more. So that's how I started acquiring more things in skill set. So yeah, that way I felt like probably this was the idea behind starting this particular course. And this is how it has helped me. And another thing is the moment you have these, it lets you to have certain creative control over a project, as in a person who's only doing say a certain say field, right? If we talk about motion graphics, they'll probably come at a stage in a project. But if you do multiple things, you might be able to look at the project from an initial stage, from more a big picture stage, which has been I think I've got few opportunities like that, and I feel that is where I've used it. But the negatives are definitely when I see somebody who's super great at motion graphics, I feel oh, I did not get the time to get this. I did not get to practice this so much that I can call myself a specialized person in that. And I do I think that's just one thing, even in typography, I do like to draw letter forms. I do like to make posters related to type. But because I decided to take this direction, I don't even have like point times knowledge of what a type designer might have had. So I think I'm also still I'm at this point where is this helping? Like initial years, it did like made like super sense to me. But now like these are few thoughts that keep on coming.
Yeah. No, I understand that. And I feel it also provides a very interesting possibility for continuously growing and, discovering your own self, your own discipline. Like it's something that, you can keep developing further. And I think the reason I asked you this is also because I see that, sometimes in young, and when I say young, I don't mean young in age, biological age, but when I say young, I mean people who are younger in their practice. Because a lot of and learners may not be young in their biological age, but at the age of 30, they are beginning to
Start.
beginning their design career. So what I mean is that when you're young in your learning journey or your practice journey, yeah, I feel that there is, that sometimes our learners, not just our learners, like anywhere else, you want to say that, okay, I've learned, now I've got everything, now I will practice and I will just continuously grow, but, and I know that I'm put it oversimplified way. Nobody is like they don't think we don't have to learn anything, but they think that, okay, I will learn how to manage people and all of that is there, and I will learn how to conduct myself and all. But they don't realize that actually you have to continue to learn your craft as well.
Definitely. I think like, I mean, this is where I am at right now. Like, I do not think like I should pick a very specific field. Like, I should not say I'll be somebody like who will just work on, say, a UI of a website. Like, I will only do like how much rounding of a button should be there or somebody. But I do think like I've seen examples, like I'll tell you, like there's one designer who has this style of making very intricate patterns, like graphic patterns and stuff like that. And because he also had this knowledge of composing sound, the work that he's creating now is like super like you definitely see a different taste in the work because of those two qualities. So I think I am in the lookout for very specific fields that if combined will give me like a better output. Like, I mean, on top of my head, like what comes is like, just like if somebody knows interaction design, just like, the aspects of how one does interact, like, not, I'm saying like in a very specific sense of motion with UI design, like, I think this is something like if they will like kind of work together better. So,
Absolutely.
and they will like, I mean, if we look at it from like in terms of design field also, they will definitely give you a better position in the industry, right? Like you will definitely be put higher or stuff like that. But yeah, again, like there are people who are like super specialized in something and then they their own
And I think to each their own. I mean, you
Hmm.
want to be a specialist, you be a specialist. You
Yeah.
want to be a generalist, be a generalist. And I actually feel that I have a problem with people trying to give all these things. No, in today's time, you need to be this, and in today's time, you need to be this. I think the beauty of the 21st century is that there is space for everybody.
Yeah.
And then
True.
Shubhanshu, you want to add something to it? I mean, you're an interesting person yourself, from an architect to a brand communicator, and like, what do you have to say on this?
But I was thinking about, I remember when I was in art school, there was this one person who would over years come to just teach one thing, which was how he made handmade books. That's it. And he was a great photographer, but he came just to teach that because he was deeply passionate about making books with hand. So he knew how to sew books, how to cut paper, what paper would work, and what size of print, and what should be the rhythm of the book, and everything. But he never taught us photography. He never taught us writing. And there were other people who were doing, like somebody who also taught us photography, but would also tell us how to edit, maybe how to do post production. So there were people who would come in who knew multiple stages of like a whole story that was going to be presented. But just this one person would come to just like he would teach us like how to make handmade books. And I am of the same opinion that You need to be knowing that, some little bit of this, little bit of that, but you also need to find that one really one thing that really interests you, or like you're really passionate about, or you're good at. If I can do marketing, I can also do like design, I can do this, that, but I am really passionate about, say, this one thing. So that not only does it keeps you going as well, but also builds your expertise, and also like helps you give direction, that this is the direction that I want to sort of build my career in. So I understand that in today's world and time, there's this term which is creative generalist, which is thrown around so often that, we want to hire people who can do this, that, blah, 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 so many things, UX, but also UI, but also graphic. But I think having this one uh, thing that you are passionate about or are good at, I think that is important for personal and professional growth, is what I would say.
I also
Be
feel
able
that,
to recognize that and build on it also.
I also feel that, giving yourself time to explore all of that,
Yeah, yeah.
and then finding your, I get a little wary of people being very sure, nahi, mujhe to yahi karna hai, like,
You're right.
like
And
that, that
people
allow yourself time to explore.
sometimes people also have this idea of self, which is like, say, I am really good at uh, graphic design, but that person might be really, really, really good at video editing or something like that. But because you want to be really good at graphic design, you have this idea set for yourself that, this is what I put my most time in. But people always forget that there are things that, for the lack of a better word, you're gifted, or like, they come very naturally to you. Uh, it's a, I don't know how to say, how to put it.
Yeah, no, I get it. I get it. There are a couple of questions, by the way, in the, we'll take the one on course, the last, Shubhangi, but we can take the other ones which Nishtha can answer. We'll take the one on course also, but we'll take it towards the end.
Okay. So Deepak has a question. Deepak is saying how rebranding of modernist typeface connects with Brazilian people because the type seems too minimalistic.
Yeah, I think I'll say like when I kind of came across this particular project, as you can see, the after one was very like inspired from Bauhaus. Like if I'll even like put that image forward and look for similar one, I will see like so many of these logos. Because what happened was like it kind of became a trend to do that. A lot of people started like just using it, like just like slapping that style on every logo. And the whole point of this like this example was like not every style or any like trend that has come across can work for every project or every branding. And what is important is to understand the context of the business. And this is what happened, right? Like they branded it. The identity was very like Bauhaus inspired identity. They themselves realized that it's not making them look like a Brazilian company. But the later one, even though the typeface and everything is really like, as you said, it is too minimalist and everything. But there are, like these little visual cues that you can find there. Like for an example, like if you see like they've made like this icon where it's almost like a face emoji, but it does relate to different posters or different packaging that were there in the region already. We can also see like a lot of printed stuff on in the Brazilian area. Like this was in Sao Paulo. Like you can see a lot of the printed thing had a texture because they use like certain screen printing quality and everything. So all their assets, like be it from stationery to whatever, were printed in that. The color palette was inspired from that. And another thing that is like, if you really look more into that project, you will see like different layouting style, right? Like some people use very symmetrical, like a certain region will have like a very like, everything is on any direction and stuff like that. But there's a very I'll say unique layouting style done to the project. You'll see framing. So there are like a lot of these visual cues that help people like believe that, oh, this is mine. Like even when you see like some Indian like brand, like and as in like there'll be different visual cues probably not be very evident, but you'll feel, oh, it belongs to India because of those visual cues. So I think that is what they try to, adopt here.
Okay, thank you for that, Nishtha. James has another question. Would you consider language as a design project? Would love to know your thoughts.
I mean, language can never be a design project. Like, language does not belong to us. Language belongs to the people who are using it. But what as designer, what we do is we study the language. We understand like how like somebody like, as in like, if I don't belong to, say I shared this example of old Chiki script, like Santali tribe. Um, if I don't belong to that particular community, like I by no say can make this my design project. Like, I can only study it, but the creation has to happen from the people who are part of that tribe. As designers, like, we can study it, we can take how the impact of what is the impact of the script, and we can just take these learnings and use in our projects differently in a way. Like, as in like later, suppose if I get a project that's done for a different community, I will definitely see script as a tool. So this is that learning that it gives us, but I cannot like say, oh, this is the script, use it from today. Like, that is not something a designer can do. That has to come from people.
Yeah. But I'm going to throw a completely different this thing. I don't know what he really meant by language, or did he mean by script or what? But the evolution of language, maybe he meant. I don't know. On a different note, Nishtha, I actually feel that if you look at the core of design process, I think it's applicable to everything, to life. You can so at that level, I find design to be very ubiquitous, in that sense that it's like it fits
Universal.
yeah, it's everywhere. In that sense, and design process, I don't mean design as the outcome, but the verb, the approach that we take to design, like everything. I want to think of what to serve my guests. I can apply design process to that, and to anything, I mean, for that matter. So I thought I'll just add that side note
Yeah,
to
like I remember like one of our exercises from like college, and it used to be like, you will not make sense like what is happening, but they would ask us to just observe somebody's process of stepping out from the class, go till the water cooler, take water and drink it. And you will think like, what design process, like what is designing this? But I think like, as they say, like it is everywhere. Like the the whole idea is to observe it and like understand what is happening. And yeah, like I think that is where like that's what
and the whole idea of bringing the focus to context, I think that is that's very sacrosanct to design and design process, that so therefore, what is the context? Therefore, what is the problem I'm trying to solve? Therefore, who am I trying to solve it for? And then let me think of not one, let me not only be analytical or critical about it. Can I have options and choose the option? So before I get critical or analytical about it, can I have options? I think just that process, is what makes design process applicable in anything and everything. This thing. Yeah. Shubhangi, do we have any more questions?
We just have one. If anybody has any other question, I request you to put it in the Q&A box. So somebody's asked, I'm working as a key account manager in an advertising firm. Will this course help me land a good job? Prachina, do you want to take that?
So I'm assuming that this is for the graphic design course. I'd like to answer this in two parts. the having graphic design skills or understanding, even if you don't want to be a graphic designer, but if you're working for an advertising film and for a company or agency, and you are working with designers, even if you don't want to be a designer yourself, having that knowledge will make you a better collaborator and a better manager, and the course will benefit you. Will it help you land a good job is the second part of the question. For that, I will have to understand what is your current job, and will you get something which is better than this or not better than this, and how much you love your current job, and how much you want to change what you do. That will depend. But is knowledge of graphic design relevant for account managers and advertising agencies? If I rephrase the question like that, I would say yes. Yeah. Actually, that also brings me to this very interesting thought. I was at this gathering of design thinkers from Delhi, and I mean, those of you who know that, so Don Norman was visiting, and I was at that. Achha, don't worry, I will talk about it separately.
Yeah.
We'll talk about it separately. So I was there, and some people were talking and all of that, and everybody was talking about, design education, what other skills do designers need to learn? And, they need to understand business, they need to understand marketing, they need to understand management, blah, 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 blah. I was like, how about the others start understanding a bit of design? Like, that's my thought. What do you think, Nishtha? You've collaborated with, okay, one approach is that let's teach designers about business and marketing and all the other things which apparently designers don't know. I'm saying apparently. But how about teaching design or design sensitivity? I mean, this question by, I don't think he gave us his name. It's by Anonymous. This question triggered that thought in me. I'm posing this question to both of you as young design practitioners and enthusiasts. How about we get others to learn a bit of design?
I do think like people, I mean, as in like, how did we get into design? It eventually like came from a personal interest, right? Like, because as in like, say for architecture, like once you do a course, you get like a license to practice it. Like there's no such thing in graphic design. Like if you're interested, you do it. If you're not, like you will not pay attention to it. I think like I've personally seen this happening with different clients. Like there are certain clients who are just interested and who just believe in like what design can kind of do to it. And then they will really allow you some time to religiously follow a design process. Right. And they like, I also like, I do see this, like people are realizing this, maybe not like the whole part of design, but just like this whole, the models that we use, like, in research in design, like that I was taught in college. Like I saw my sister was also like reading about the same models, like in management. And like we did this discussion, like, why are they teaching you this? And she said, like, they said it's for research and stuff like that. So I did see some commonalities, but I think like when a designer is working with a client or with a team, like when you find a client who's interested into it, like he would really like for his own project, like he will really like look up to, like I saw one client who really like went ahead, started learning about material design, what is like accessibility in websites and all of that. So it's coming from somebody's interest, like okay, I should know about it because it will help me, while like designers are also doing. But there are still some people who just like, who feel like we just need output and like somehow like, and then they feel just like, oh, we need somebody because we don't know the software to do it. So there are definitely these two sense, but because design field was fairly new from engineering and other management and all of these fields, like I definitely see that they are already doing some bits to it. And one interesting thing that like one of my friends said one time was, design is really like a faculty kind of said this to him, like, is in middle, like it can go in the direction of management also, it can go in the direction of engineering also, which is so true if you think like the field was kind of like made from these sides as well. So anybody, like if I'm a designer, if I learn more like management related stuff, it'll be helpful for me. If somebody's from that side, if they learn like more design related stuff, it'll be helpful for them. I mean, helpful in terms of your output, but if we talk about industry, like maybe it'll be helpful for just like your opinions will be more sharper and you will be like your opinions will have more weight, right? So it has like both these like
Yeah, no, but I meant it only from a point of view of, that if, and design is collaborative, and the function of design in any business setup is highly collaborative, because it can never, design will never be successful if it is practiced or if it is part of any system in isolation. That is the nature of design, and probably it is the nature of most disciplines, but this is highly, because you do need to collaborate. Now, one approach of it is that, अच्छा ठीक है, let's teach everything to designers, उनको technicalities भी सिखा देते हैं, उनको मतलब, so if whatever is that, so technicals and marketing and business and finance, and let them get a sensitization to how about, bringing this at both ends. Everybody needs to understand each other a little bit more for this to, and not put the entire onus of this on designers.
No, I totally agree. Like, I think especially in the fields which are like which designer require to like, create an output. For example, like before I begin on a project, I need a brief. And for that brief, I want a researcher like to do like their bit and then give me the brief. And if they have a better understanding, like my brief will be stronger. Same goes with like, say people are gonna develop my site. If they have more like design sensibilities, like it'll just make my job easier. So I think like there are really specific these fields, like if they learn more design, like of course like the collaboration will be much better.
Absolutely.
I think more than learning design, I think personally I feel that we need to understand and learn, like understand the importance of design and the function of design that is there. I personally feel that design, we approach it very superficially, that it is like कुछ अच्छा दिखना चाहिए बस last में. But at the core of it, design is problem solving. And I was watching this other video where some client had approached an agency and they wanted to build a website. But what they actually wanted, the solution was an app which they could like they could show their clients on their iPad, and just like for 3, 4, 5, 6 iPads at max. So I think if I, as an account manager, for the context of the question, I know the function of design, I'll be able to provide a better solution to the client as well. So I think I agree with Nishtha, it works both ways. A designer needs to understand management and other uh, functions of other departments, but other people or other departments also need to understand the function and the importance of design that is there in an organization.
And the role of design, and also a little bit of I think every discipline has a different way of thinking or a different system of thinking. I don't need to understand marketing, but I need to understand how do marketeers think. I don't need to understand, or I need to understand that what is the overlap of marketing and design. Similarly, if I don't need to understand if I want to grow, and everybody needs to have some managerial skills, that's a separate matter. But I do need to understand that how does a business operate, and how does what happens to the finances of it. Doesn't mean that I have to know how to balance sheets, this thing, or plan cash flows and plan. But I do want to understand that, I do need to understand that, okay, there is this function, and how do they think, and how does that function. Anyways, in the interest of time, there are 2 or 3 interesting questions which we must take.
So Abhijit is asking, symbols and visual design had a huge impact on the masses in the past. wonder what more it can do if we learn to show what we want. Do you have any recommendations for visual communication book?
Great. Okay, so I think, as you said, like definitely, like we did look into more examples like that were from the past, but there are like still like examples that we can find even in today's time, right? Like, and it will happen like as our surroundings are changing. Like again, like like we have visual cues of what kind of like what is printed on your t-shirt, right? Like gives you what kind of a person you are. So I mean, it's just an example of visuals are still like doing something in our society, like when we do, like we interact with people. The style of shoes or the style of watch that you're wearing says something about you. So all of these are visual cues. But in terms of books, I think on top of my head, like there are 2, 3 books that have kind of like introduced this topic to me, I'll say. Like one of them is The Politics of Design by Ruben Peters. Like if you want, I can type it down later in the chat. Another one was which actually introduced this whole topic of script and graphic politics. Like what do we mean by graphic politics? Like why are people creating symbol for a like political agenda, or like what does this mean to them? Was this book by Nishant Chokshi. Like it is about graphic politics in Eastern India, which is a documentation on the script Old Chiki. There is another book by Ellen Lupton. It's called Design Writing Systems. And it really talks about how have we moved from, say, hieroglyphs, like, like in Egyptian caves, you'll see certain symbol, like a symbol of an eye, an eagle, a man sitting, pointing towards lips and stuff like that, to like emojis that we use today, right? Like we have developed meaning. So yeah, I think like these 3 books kind of come into my head right now.
Thank you for that, Nishtha. Shubham has another question. He asked, do you think architectural different like it was before is lost now? You think we still have architectural importance in today's culture? What are your thoughts?
I think so from based on what I've come across till now, and this is one understanding that I've developed for myself. Like if you think about it, like people used to use architecture as a tool to kind of say this is mine, right? Like different empires will break somebody's building and build their tomb on top of it, or their building, and say this is mine. And that is why they needed like a distinct architectural style to say this area is mine because this building is mine. Right now, if you see like more architectural design, where we see is more related to brands or places like say cafes and stuff like that. So I feel like the role has changed from something where they are saying that they're possessing this is mine, to it has come to something that this place is like I want more customers, or stuff like that. And then I mean there's definitely this whole range of different architectures do mean different, but I feel like they're not political anymore. They're more like from business objectives, and we see design like in different places. And even in like educational institutes, right? Like the design for building kind of conducts by what are we going to do? Like what is the ideology behind? Like if you see a design college, like the building will be different from say an engineering college, right? Because again, this is the lens we're looking for. Like we're not looking at anymore like from a lens like this belongs to my this thing, and it's not coming from a possession kind of side.
So, can I just add to this? If you look at it, so architecture is part of what we call as material culture. The tangible expressions, clothing, jewelry, body adornment, graphics, all of this. This is all part of the expressed expressions, right? And therefore, what we call as material culture. It is always, identity has always been at the root of any expression. So, whether it is the way I dress up, the idea of beauty, the body adornment, type expression of any kind, whether it is through art, whether it is through objects that are produced, all of that, at the root of it is identity. Sometimes it emerges from your identity. Sometimes it creates your identity or defines your identity. But the idea of identity and belonging is very, very rooted in any of these expressions. Now, interestingly, in the 21st century, where actually late 20th century, with communication and transportation and all of that increasing, and globalization, and this whole idea of all of us wanting to be global citizens and not, the idea of identity itself is shifting. Where are we drawing our identity from? I actually look at, I don't know how much both of you agree with me on this or not, but if you look at branding, which is a contemporary practice, and which is where a lot of creative work or design work is today part of, or touches at least with, what is at the core of branding? It is again an expression of identity. So it's, how is it any different from a empire having their emblem and flag and army uniform? And how is that any different from a brand's design system?
True.
Yeah. So to answer the question that was there, to add what you have added to it, is that as a human race, as civilization, the way we will keep looking at identity, will it be more individualistic? Will it be more collective? Will it be more geographical? Will it be more driven by ideology? What drives our sense of identity will drive our expressions. So therefore, we will not think about, this is not a local material, or in India, pillars used to look like this and now pillars can look something else. And I think it's an important point for all of us, as because we're not just part of the society or culture. We create society and culture with every choice that we make as individuals. So our need to be global citizens and have identity at that level, how is that change? I mean, how is that having a bearing on what designers are producing?
But I would slightly differ with Nishtha here. I still think that architecture is very, very political. In a way, I just think that while you're in it, you're not able to see it. So maybe like 50 years down the line that we'll be able to see when we'll be studying about like architecture in 2020 or whatever. Maybe then we'll be able to make sense of it when we see it from an outsider or like a zoomed out POV. But I feel, again, it comes back to context, how the need has changed now. So from, as Nishtha said, that it was about authority and identity, now it's become about, I don't know, a status symbol that, if you're very rich, then you'll have like a bigger piece of land, a bigger, modern, different kinds of amenities sort of a house. If you're like a middle class person, then you'll live in apartments, and you'll have your identity will be inside the house, and the outside will become uniform for everyone. I don't know, there's just certain types of boxes that we like to put ourselves into, but I don't think the politics of it is gone. I think it's still there, it's just not on the surface anymore
for us to kind of look into. Yeah.
So it's still there, Shubhangi. I also agree with you. I mean, the whole idea of, governments commissioning monuments or anything to be memorials and all of that, because architecture has always withstood the test of time out of everything else, fashion or clothing and other things, and even art also, I mean, is part of that. Art and architecture that gets created in an era stays on for a much longer time. I think the shift that is happening, depending on, like what the common person's architecture or this, is that we are breaking buildings and rebuilding or remaking buildings sooner. I mean, it's become faster, the cycle. पहले आपने घर बनाया तो वो अभी आप बना रहे हो तो you're saying that okay 15 years okay after that it but that's for residential. Yeah, you're not going to, I mean, you're not going to reconstruct the parliament every 15 years.
We seem to be doing that also.
Yeah, yeah, no, not every 15 years, hopefully.
Not every 15
But
years.
yeah, let's take the other questions.
Okay, so this is a big question. Somebody's asking, when you're working on visualizing cultural narratives, how do you make sure you're representing underrepresented communities in an authentic manner without crossing into cultural appropriation or oversimplifying things? Which is part one. And part two is, how do you stay true to the richness and complexity of a culture while still making it relatable and understandable to a new, wider audience?
I think, I mean, this is one of that question that really like pops in. I'm sure like it must be some question that pops in your head like a lot of times, especially when you see any project that's done in a social context. But I'll say like, as in like, when we say underrepresented communities, right? I think one of the biggest tasks that a designer can take on their head is to understand like what will they get once they like once you know their voice will be out, like what is the functional need of doing this, right? As in like, say, is a community like is that community not able to access something, right? Like are they not able to get education because their voice is not out there? Are they not getting medical facilities, like like in today's world, because of these marginalized community, like that is one of the bigger challenge. So I think first is to understand that, and what do we mean by authentic manner, like is again like to not say like design knowledge to us, how did it come in India, was like we adopted Swiss patterns of design, like Western patterns of design, right? They taught us like everything that is clean is good design, everything that is well aligned is good design. So they taught us this way of design. But I think like a lot of designers are now like recognizing that maybe Western way of design is not the only way of design, like, right? And that's why you'll find more and more designers that are finding like new definitions of what is a good design, right? As we spoken like the other examples in the presentation, right? It's not like, oh, I was taught that this typeface, if I use everywhere, it's like good design, like I'll get full marks in design. But it is about like, what do we use that belongs to the community or it relates to them? So I think like my answer to this is to break this barrier, like learn and unlearn, basically, like break this barrier of what we've been taught in college, right? Use the learnings, but like don't slap all of that like blindly onto your project, right? Another question that you're asking, like, how do we stay true to the richness, complexity, and all of that? I think this is like a really tough job because most of us don't belong to those community. And like, I think often like I've learned it the hard way. Like one time I was doing this project. It was for a community, like a community that I was working, like it was just like a hypothetical project. But I did something that I didn't realize will have like they will not find it good. They will find it probably offensive or something. So I think the more you research, you realize like maybe how we see things or how they see things, like how, as I said, like how we see thumbs up as a gesture and how other people see thumbs up, it's not the same. So only thing that we can do is just like research and collect and analyze that data more and then do the project. Like biggest mistake will be just like to do like a superficial layer of research and do a project. And that, like, as I said, like I've learned it like after realizing mistakes and all of that. But this as a thing, like it's really hard to give like a formula to do this project, because more and more people are now realizing that there's not one way, like there, like as in like there are different principles, right, that we've been taught in design, but they cannot be applied everywhere, right? Though like there are foundations of just like doing a project, understanding design and everything, but these styles that we've been taught, like we cannot like just apply it blindly.
Yeah. I think this is the last question we have for tonight. Ayush, Ayush is asking, have you come across an example where visual design navigates the tension between cultural heritage and context of a person? Or what are your thoughts on it?
A visual design, I mean, I don't think like I can't think of a project that really like comes in my like in my mind that really like talks about cultural heritage and context of a person. Like I'm honestly not sure like what do they mean by context of a person, but if I'm guessing like like right now, like if I say cultural heritage, like definitely like I as a person do belong from certain, like I do have a cultural heritage like of myself, but how I've evolved as a person is something else. So I just feel like now as people, like we're just more complex in terms of what do we refer to because we have more exposure, right? Like if you see like say different trends that are happening in different parts of the world, you get influence and we adopt something, we reject something. So I think now we ourselves have become like this complex personality that we like to portray, right? Like as I said, like if people are like say if they're wearing gold chains, they define like they project something out of them. If somebody's wearing certain kind of t-shirt, they define something. So there are like so many things that make, I'm like, again, I'm assuming a context of a person, but I haven't come across like a project or an instance specifically that kind of like fiddles with these two things. But I'm sure like these are something that do exist. I mean, together, and there's no way to avoid it. But yeah, like can't think of a project on the top of my head.
Okay, I think with that, we've come to the end of this masterclass. Thank you for joining us, Nishtha. That was a wonderful presentation. Thank you, Prachi ma'am, for joining us today. I really enjoy these conversations. Thank you, everyone who's been here till the end of this masterclass. I hope you had a good time. So yeah, we have another masterclass happening tomorrow. So please do join in for another interesting conversation. Yeah, with that, I say bye-bye and good night.
Good night, and thank you, Nishtha, so much for your time and for being with us.
Thank you. It was great to talk to you guys in present. Thank you. I hope it was helpful. Good night. Thank
Good
you.
night. Good night.
Bye bye.